So I saw this video and I thought it was interesting. It's called Claim. Oh, my bad. Crime so horrifying they changed the laws. Now, I never really thought about it, but when you hear about like crimes named after people, you never think they're named after people. Like for example, Amber Alert. I didn't know that was based off a person. I just thought that was what it was called. But you know, it's gonna get into the nitty gritty. So let's hear it.
A 7-year-old girl is murdered by the same neighbor helping search for her body, and within months, America creates a nationwide sex offender registry.
Whoa. Let's get past these spoilers though.
The murder of Megan Conca, Megan's Law.
I don't
What
know
if your
this.
neighbor, the one who helped you search for your missing daughter,
that's what he was
was
just talking
actually the
about.
one who killed her? Well, as unbelievable
Is that not crazy? Like I know, hear me out. This is like when like someone in like gym would be losing a phone and the person but oh bro, I'll help you look for it. They the one who took the phone, bro. That's like this. Obviously, we know which one's like worse. But like that's the first thing I think about when I think about this.
as that sounds, it is exactly what happened to the Conca family in Hamilton Township, New Jersey on July 29th of 1994. Megan Conca was 7 years old. She'd been playing outside when her parents noticed her bike sitting abandoned on the front lawn and no signs of Megan. So they did what any family would do. They panicked, called neighbors, and started searching the street. One of the people who came out to help look was Jesse Timendequis, the 33-year-old man who lived directly across.
Like he just looked weird, bro. And like I know, like, bro, I don't know, bro. He just looks strange. Like I feel like I'd say that same thing even if he didn't do this. He looks strange though. Come on, bro. I can't but I think he looks strange to me cuz like folks don't rock them glasses no more. That's like that was an 80s thing. You feel me? Like normal people don't wear those glasses anymore. I do see women's wearing them, not men's though. I do see the women's wearing them. Not like in flux, like not like a bunch of them, but I see if any, it's women.
Across from them. He spent time searching alongside them and basically playing the part, you know, the concerned neighbor and all. And the whole time, he already knew where Megan was. He had lured her in earlier that evening, told her he had a new puppy and she could come see it. Once she was inside, he raped her, strangled her with a belt, and dumped her body at Mercer County Park. But as I said, the worst part of the story is that Timendequis wasn't some random guy the Concas had never interacted.
Yeah, he was the neighbor. Usually you got to worry about a Randeezy. He was the neighbor, bro. That's crazy.
With. In fact, their kids had grown up seeing him around. And nobody in that neighborhood knew because nobody was legally required to tell them that this man had already been convicted of.
Oh, he was. Oh. So Megan's Law is where they have to like go door to door and tell them.
Assaulting 2 little girls before Megan. There were 2 separate cases, a 5-year-old in 1979 and a 7-year-old in 1981. In that second case, he had choked the girl so hard she turned blue and her mother found her unconscious on the ground. The second judge literally called him a compulsive, repetitive offender.
Then why is he not like in jail? Like why is he? Well, hello there, neighbor. Like why is he not in prison? Yo, justice system, what are y'all? He did this twice and he's not behind bars? I feel like once is enough, no?
Who was a danger to children specifically. He got the full 10-year sentence, but he served less than 7. And it gets worse. Timendequis
Yo, that me in the back look just like him, bro. Wait.
Was apparently not living a 10-year sentence, but he served less than 7. And
that actually looks just like him.
Gets worse. Timendequis was apparently not living alone at the time of the incident. His 2 roommates in that same house, the house across from the Concas, were also convicted sex offenders.
They were living together? Yeah. See, the 80s was a wild time, bro. Some people like, hey, I wish to be born. I don't, bro. There are so many things that are better than it was like back then, bro. Even in the 80s, nah, bro. There are like when I say so many things, I feel like the only thing that has gotten worse in this time compared to the 80s is like school shootings. That has gotten like way worse, bro. But I also feel like bullying was way worse in the 80s too. Cause like bullying now is like, I ain't gonna lie, I just don't really think bullying exists. I know it still do, but I feel like it's more tame compared to what it was before, bro. The 80s, man, you would see they would put you upside down and give you a swirly, bro. Brother, man, about, oh, that's him. And they full on jump you, bro. Have you seen every single one of those like 80s type shows, bro? Or movies where like the nerdy kid or just they don't even gotta be nerd. Well, they're usually nerdy. But they just get beat up by the bullies. Look, I can think of 3 examples off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure Stranger Things had that. Black Phone, he had that too. Karate Kid got kidnapped. Who was his best friend? So he was getting beat up. And the third one, it Welcome to like Pennywise, it they were also getting beat. That kid was crazy though. He got a knife and he was like cut. Yo, he was. But I'm telling you, it seemed like bullies in the 80s were way more ruthless than they are now. I don't know if that's just how it portrayed, but that's how I feel like it was. I got asked some folks who was going to school in the 80s.
3 men with records for
Breakfast Club, they showed some of it. I mean, they hinted to it.
child assault, all in the same home on a quiet residential street full of kids.
Okay, this is just, you might gotta investigate that whole like police department. I know it wasn't a law yet, but that didn't like ring a bell at all. Like I know some things like I understand some things don't come to mind, but brother, man, they were sharing a house and they all were offenders in a kid's neighborhood.
The Conkas had lived in that neighborhood for 16 years. They had assumed the best of the streets with zero idea who some of the people there were. Maureen Conka, the mother, even said that when Megan was raped and murdered by a neighbor, she then realized just how little she knew about her neighborhood. After that, they fought, and they fought fast. Just 89 days after Megan was killed, New Jersey had already passed Megan's Law, a mandatory sex offender registration, a state-tracked database. They fought, and they fought fast. Just 89 days after Megan was killed, New Jersey had
New Jersey
already passed Megan.
Is that a universal law or is it just a new? Because I hear, well, ever since I was, you feel me? This was way before my time, but I heard that like if you're a neighbor and you have that, you always have to go like house to house, like no matter what.
Law, a mandatory sex offender registration, a state-tracked database, and public notification when a high-risk offender moved into a neighborhood. Richard and Maureen then pushed it state by state until May 17th, 19.
Like I know there's the whole thing about like redemption and all that, but like, dog, I wouldn't want to live next to someone like, you feel me? Like it's like, oh, you're out of jail after 10 years. Now you can live again with society. But it's like, I don't want to live next to someone like that in my neighborhood, bro. Let's say I got a little goober too, like
96, when President
they just need to put them like in their own like neighborhood. Like they gotta like, so where Squidward was living, they gotta just live in like a place where all of them can like coincide, bro. I'm still not comfortable living around one, right? But I'd be more comfortable if it was just me. Like if I had like a wife or a kid, I would be way less like comfortable than I already would be. But if it's just me, I think that's more tolerable, right? But wife and kid, nah, I can't do that, bro.
Clinton signed a federal version requiring every state to maintain a public sex offender registry.
Oh, every state.
Timendakos was convicted on all 8 counts in 1997 and initially sentenced to death, but when New Jersey abolished the death penalty in 2007, that became life without parole. He's still alive today, and the Conkas, well, they still live in the same house in Hamilton Township.
Same
Matthew
house?
Shepard and James Bird.
Bro, I would not want to live in that same house, bro. I would not want to live in that same house. Hopefully they're doing well, bro. I'd be scarred for life, bro.
Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. This next case takes us to October 1998.
Wait, is this the gay dude? I heard one about a gay dude. I'm I'm not too sure if it is though.
Matthew Shepard was 21, a political science student at the University of Wyoming, openly gay,
Okay. It is.
studying with dreams of eventually working in diplomacy. He was small, about 5'2", blonde, and wore
Damn,
braces.
5'2".
By most accounts, a thoughtful, sociable kid who'd had a rough couple of years before enrolling at Wyoming. He'd, for example, been
Oh wait,
gang
when was this?
in
My
act.
bad.
This next case takes us to October 1998. Matthew Shepard
1998.
was 20. He'd, for example, been gang on a high school trip to Morocco,
He been-
and his mom
he been
later
what?
before enrolling at Wyoming. He'd, for example, been gang on a high school trip to Morocco, and his mom later said he was just starting to feel like himself again. Well, that is before everything fell apart.
Okay, listen. You're making fun of him for being gay, but then y'all gang rape him? How does that make sense? Like, I don't. Let's just move on, bro.
Again. On the night of October 6th, he walked into a local
Wait,
bar
what is
called the Fireside Lounge, fell apart again. On the night of October 6th, he walked into a local bar called the Fireside Lounge after meeting up with friends on campus. He ended up chatting with two guys, Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson, both 21, both working roofing jobs at the same time. According to the lead investigator on the case, McKinney and Henderson had gone into the bathroom at that bar and planned to pretend to be gay so they could get Matthew to trust them. The goal was robbery. Matthew left with them. Once in the truck, McKinney pulled a gun, beat him, and took his wallet with $20 inside.
All right, come on, y'all doing too much. Y'all doing too much, bro. $20? Come on. I'd be so mad. I'd be more mad than I'm scared, bro. Y'all lured me and beat me up for $20, bro. Bro, I should do something to y'all. Like, I should kill y'all, bro. For real, bro. Like, I'd be so mad, bro. I'd be so mad, bro. Y'all beat me up for $20. Y'all do roofing. You probably get paid more than $20 hourly. Or no, that's a lot. But y'all, that's a lot during that time. Y'all probably get paid 20. Oh, actually, during that, minimum wage during that time was like, it had to be like $7, bro. It do depend where they at. I don't remember what place he said. No, they might have been getting paid $12 an hour, maybe 12.
They drove about a mile outside of town to a remote stretch of rocky prairie. Henderson tied Matthew to a wooden fence post with a clothesline while McKinney pistol whipped him
This is okay. Yeah, I was right. It is the fence post one.
with a .357 revolver, hitting him between 19 and 21 times. The sheriff later said the only injuries he'd seen comparable to that were from high-speed car chases. They then took his shoes and left him there in the cold. He stayed tied to that fence for 18 hours until a teenager riding his mountain bike the following evening spotted him and initially thought he was looking at a Halloween scarecrow.
It's like, bro, you already robbed me. Like, why are you so?
Matthew had 4 skull fractures, a crushed brainstem, and tear tracks down his face. That was the only skin not covered in dried blood. He never regained consciousness and died 5 days later. McKinney and Henderson were both convicted and are currently serving 2 consecutive life sentences for kidnapping and murder.
25?
The thing about this one is that the debate
what,
about
30,
motivation
50?
never fully settled. At trial, McKinney's
gotta
lawyers
be a
tried
hate crime.
arguing that Matthew had touched his leg in the truck, and that triggered the attack, essentially a gay panic defense. The judge
I know it's your job for lawyers to defend like their clients, brother. What? You are not getting paid today. You are not getting paid today, bro. That was a appointed lawyer. That make no sense in the slightest. Oh no! Like, bro, you already robbed him. You accomplished your mission. You could have killed him instantly, but you decide to beat him to death. Bro, I feel like y'all pretended to be gay. But if it bothered you that much, why would you pretend to be gay anyway? Again, that don't really make sense to me. He touched your leg and it bothered you that much, but you pretend to be gay? That doesn't make sense to me.
threw it out. But what's unsettling is that at the time of Matthew's death, that kind of defense was still legally admissible in most US states. Some argue the real motive was drugs and robbery, not hatred, but the robbery motive dropped away fast. And what followed was something more intense. The entire country was sort of up in arms against Matthew. Yes, there were protests kind of celebrating that a gay individual died. Vigils spread across the US, and even Matthew's father wore a bulletproof vest to the funeral because the threat level was that high. When it comes to James Byrd Jr., he was a black man from Jasper, Texas, when 3 white supremacists murdered him in one of the most cruel ways imaginable. On June 7th of 1998, Sean Berry, Lawrence Brewer, and John King dragged him for 3 miles behind their Ford pickup truck along a dirt road. James remained conscious for most of this act, but it wasn't until his body hit a culvert that his head and right arm were severed. The men continued dragging him for another mile until they dumped his torso in front of a black cemetery. Brewer and King were executed, and Barry received life imprisonment. And out of all of it came the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, signed by President Obama in 2009, the first federal law to explicitly...
2009? This happened in... That was 10 years ago, bro. Yo, who was the president before this, bro? Who was it, Bush? 10 years for a law to be made after that. 10 years.
protect people from crimes motivated by sexual orientation, gender identity, or disability. It took 11 years to pass.
11 years.
The murder of Lacey and Connor Peterson, Unborn Victims of Violence Act. Sometimes a case just breaks your heart before it even gets to the crime, and this is one of those. Lacey Peterson was 27, 8 months pregnant, and she and her husband Scott had already picked out a name for their baby. It was Connor. By all accounts from the people around them, they looked like the picture-perfect young couple in Modesto, California. Then Christmas Eve 2002 happened. Lacey was last heard from the night before. She'd called her mom, stopped by her sister's hair salon, normal stuff. The next morning, Scott said he left the house around 9:30 to go fishing at the Berkeley Marina about 90 miles away. When he came back that afternoon, he said Lacey wasn't home, so he called her phone, left a voicemail, and reported her missing. In the early days, he was out doing local news interviews, appealing for help, and Lacey's own family was fully behind him, talking about what a solid marriage they had. But that didn't last long. Investigators started picking up on things about Scott's behavior that fell off. Then, on December 30th, a woman named Amber Frey went to the police and told them she'd been in a relationship with him. And weeks before Lacey even disappeared, Scott had told Amber he was a widower who was going to spend his first Christmas without his wife. He said that while Lacey was still alive. The case came to a head the following April when Lacey's body and the body of baby Connor washed up on the shores of the San Francisco Bay, right near where Scott had told police he went fishing on Christmas Eve. When they arrested him shortly after, he was at a golf course, he dyed his hair blonde, and had $15,000 cash, 4 cell phones, camping gear, survival equipment, and a dozen Viagra on him. He was charged with 2 murders. First degree for Lacey and second degree for Connor under California's fetal homicide law. The jury convicted him on both, and he ended up being on death row, though the California Supreme Court pulled him off of it in 2020. He's now serving life without parole. But the bigger legal story was happening at the federal level because in April of 2004, President George W. Bush signed the Unborn Victims of Violence Act, which almost immediately got nicknamed Lacey and Connor's Law. What it said, essentially, was that when a pregnant woman is harmed or killed during the commission of a federal
it counts as 2 people.
Crime, the unborn child counts as a separate victim.
But how many months does she have to be? Because what if she's like 2 weeks? Does that still count? Or is 2 weeks? I don't know the abortion period, but what if it's like during that time?
With its own legal protection. 38 states eventually followed their own versions. It's worth noting that this law was quite decisive from day one. On one side, abortion rights groups saw it
okay. Never mind, bro. Never mind.
As a way to quietly establish fetal personhood in federal law, which they argue would eventually create a legal conflict with reproductive rights. And on the other side, supporters of the law countered that when someone kills a pregnant woman, there are plainly 2 victims, and the law should just say that plainly. Scott Peterson, for what it's worth, has maintained his innocence since day one and is still fighting for a new trial, now with the Los Angeles Innocence Project in his corner. Whether that goes anywhere is another story altogether. David Berkowitz, the New York serial killer, son of Sam Laws. For over a year between the summers of 1976 and 1977, New York City was held hostage.
That's not a haircut. That's just hair. Like, I don't even know. Actually, wait. Why is this area right here like so crispy, and then it just gets to pure chaos over here? But this is like, he was sitting in the chair. He said, "Hold on, I gotta go do something." He's getting a line. He said, "Hold on, wait. You got an urge, bro."
By a single man with a .44 caliber revolver. He called himself the Son of Sam. City was held hostage by a single man with a .44 caliber revolver. He called himself the Son of Sam. He killed 6 people, wounded 7 more, and nearly all of his attacks followed the same pattern.
Wait, he killed 6 people? He was not missing. He had a revolver. That's 6 rounds, and he hit every single shot.
Killed 6 people, wounded 7 more, and nearly all of his attacks followed the same pattern. Young couples sitting in parked cars at night. The city was so gripped by fear that women were dyeing their hair and buying wigs because several of his victims had long, dark hair.
That's so lame, bro. Young couples? I mean, like, I would have been fine, but still. I would have been sitting there eating a sandwich like, I would have seen him. You would have looked at me. I'm like, what's up, bro? You good, bro? It's single, bro.
And nobody wanted to be next. His real name was David Berkowitz, and before all of this, he was just a 24-year-old postal employee from the Bronx, quiet, unremarkable, but also, like most serial killers I guess, deeply troubled. Born Richard David Falco in Brooklyn, he was given up for adoption at birth by his mother, a woman that had not been married and that he never knew. The Berkowitz family took him in and renamed him, and for a while things seemed ordinary enough. But even as a child, people around him noticed something was off. He was caught stealing, killing animals, destroying property, and setting up fires.
See, that's a red flag, right? Maybe not the other stuff. Fire, that's like a semi-red flag. Semi-red, like fire, that causes concern, but not like absolute, like, it depends what he's setting fires to. Like, if he's just like setting fires to like sticks and stuff, and also it depends how much he's setting fires. Like, that's still concerning, but not the killing animals. That's a red flag, bro. If you killing animals, then yeah, you most likely a serial killer, bro. I ain't talking about hunting, bro. I'm talking about just straight up like, oh, there's a squirrel. Let me decapitate it. Yeah, you a serial killer.
When he was 14, his adoptive mother died of cancer. His father eventually remarried and moved to Florida, essentially leaving Berkowitz behind. He enlisted in the army at 18, returned 3 years later.
Wait, what?
When he was 14, his adoptive mother died of cancer. His father eventually remarried and moved to Florida, essentially leaving Berkowitz behind.
At 14? Is that not illegal?
He enlisted in the army at 18, returned.
Is that not like neglect? Child neglect or child abandonment?
3 years later after having caught a venereal disease from a prostitute in South Korea, which he would later describe as his first and last romantic encounter.
You sold me. I was already crazy and now you gave me herpes? Are you serious? You gave me AIDS?
So you can already tell what was building inside him.
Yeah, bro.
Back in New York, alone and, on a sort of downward spiral, he made yet another discovery that pushed him further over the edge. His birth mother, whom he'd believed had died in childbirth, was actually alive.
And she had a whole family, I bet.
Found her, she was distant and disinterested. For someone who had already convinced himself that women wanted nothing to do with him, that was apparently the confirmation he needed. He moved into an apartment in Yonkers, and by Christmas Eve 1975, something had fully snapped inside him. He followed two teenage girls on the street and stabbed them. 1975, something had fully snapped inside him. He followed two teenage girls on the street and stabbed them from behind with a hunting knife. Both survived, but neither could identify him. On July 29th of 1976, he approached a parked car in the Bronx where two young women were sitting and fired several shots.
Why young women though? Wait, let me get this straight. You shouldn't be shooting women at all. Right? No, you shouldn't be shooting like women at all. But why young though?
18-year-old Donna Lauria died instantly. Her friend Jody Valenti survived. Berkowitz walked away and found out only the next morning through the newspaper that he had killed someone. What followed was a 12-month killing spree across Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan. Police knew they were looking for a single killer, a white male in his 20s, black hair, average build, but leads kept going nowhere. The breakthrough, when it finally came, was almost embarrassingly mundane. After his last attack in July 1977 in Brooklyn, a witness came forward saying she'd seen a suspicious-looking man pulling a parking ticket from his car window near the scene. Detectives pulled the ticket records for that area, and that night, they came up with the name David Berkowitz. When police arrived outside his Yonkers apartment and found a rifle in his car, along with maps of the crime scenes and a letter written to...
Yo, I know this is kind of random, but like, you said Yonkers, like I know that, it's played, but I think of Tyler, and then I was thinking of GTA. I was like, yo, GTA 6? They gonna have a fire soundtrack, bro. They have a whole decade of music to use. I don't know what they gonna use. They gonna have a fire soundtrack though.
The authorities, they knew they had their man. Inside his apartment, they found what they described as satanic graffiti on the walls and diaries cataloging every fire he'd set since he was 21. He confessed, pleaded guilty to 6 murders, and was given 6 consecutive 25 years to life sentences. But the part that outlasted everything else is that Berkowitz, it turned out, was enjoying the media circus around his case. Word got out that he
because he was getting no attention before.
And his team were negotiating a book deal reportedly worth $1 and $10 million, with Berkowitz personally set to receive a third. Literally the very next day, the New York State legislature moved to stop it. They passed what became known as the Son of Sam law, which allowed the state to seize any money a convicted criminal earned from selling their story and redirect it to a victim's compensation fund. As for Berkowitz himself,
that's a good law. That's actually, I didn't know that. That's a pretty good law.
himself, he's now apparently a born-again Christian, runs an online ministry with the help of evangelical supporters, and goes by a new name, Son of Hope.
That's great and all, but like you still killed like 6 people, like for no reason. Like I'm glad you're doing fine, I guess. Like I'm glad you find God, but they're with God.
The murder of Kitty Genovese, the emergency call system. Before March 13, 1964, if something terrible was happening to you in the States, there was no single number to call. You had to know the direct line to your local police or...
Yeah, they didn't even have phones, bro. They had to write out a carrier pigeon. Where's my pen and pad? Like, bro, you're cooked, bro.
Or dial 0 and hope an operator could connect you fast enough. But what happened to Kitty Genovese that night, and more importantly, what the world was told happened, would eventually change that. It was around 3:15 in the morning when 20-year-old Genovese pulled up to her apartment building in Kew Gardens, Queens, after finishing a late shift managing a bar. She was 50 feet away from her front door when a man named Winston Mosley, a complete stranger who had spotted her at a traffic light earlier and simply followed her home, came at her with a hunting knife.
Bro, what's with these hunting knives? What's going on, man? Y'all gotta make these like a rare item, bro. Y'all just got these, like, this is what they're going for, bro. Y'all gotta put some on these hunting knives, bro. Why all these folks got hunting knives?
Stranger who had spotted her at a traffic light earlier and simply followed her home came at her with a hunting knife. She screamed. A neighbor, Robert Moser, yelled from his window, "Leave that girl alone," and Mosley ran off but had gotten to her already. For a second, it looked like she could have made it, but she didn't. Seriously wounded, Genovese crawled toward the rear entrance of her building, out of sight of the street. 10 minutes later, Mosley came back.
What?
He found her in a hallway, stabbed her again, assaulted her, and stole $49 from her purse. Her neighbor, Sophia Farrar, who, worth noting, had
What was the neighbor doing?
no idea whether the attacker was still there, raced downstairs and held Genovese in her arms until the ambulance arrived.
Okay, but bro, listen. I'm not saying it's the neighbor's fault in the slightest, but brother, man, you saw what happened before. You didn't go and like you just left. You just closed your blinds. You're like, well, all right then. I did what I could. Bro, did you not see her get stabbed? We're crawling on the floor. You just stood there. At least tell me he pressed 0.
Genovese died on the way to the hospital. It turned out Mosley had been driving around Queens that night looking for a victim. Now, among the many strange things about him, it turns out that he was married, had 3 children, and no criminal record. Regardless, he was caught days later entirely by accident when police responded to a reported burglary, found a stolen television in the trunk of his car, and brought him in. While being questioned at the station, a detective noticed scabs on his hands and connected him to the Genovese case. Mosley confessed and also admitted to and murdering 2 other women. He was sentenced to death, later reduced to life imprisonment, and died in prison in 2016 at 81 years old. That was the story. A brutal crime, a random killer caught by chance, and a neighborhood mourning and left confused. But 2 weeks after the murder, on March 27, 1964, the New York Times published a front-page article with a headline that reframed everything. 37 who saw murder didn't call police. The piece, which originated from a conversation between the Times editor and police commissioner, claimed that 38 neighbors had witnessed the attack and done absolutely nothing.
That's what I was saying. But like, you saw her get stabbed. You didn't even like go out there, like, or call. At least call. At the minimum, bro. Like, I know you're not Superman. You don't know what else at least call, bro. If I had a stick, though, you feel me? I don't know. Like, I've never been in that situation, but like, I'm saying if I was in that exact situation during that exact time, I'd be scared too. But I just try and think. No, like, even if I'm here, like, I'm not nearly as scared as she is. You feel me? But he spun back when she was crawling on the floor after he ran away. But like, if I went out there, I need to have something. I need to have something. Nobody called?
The story hit a nerve so deep, it became a kind of cultural shorthand for urban moral collapse. Proof, supposedly, that city life had made people so detached from each other that they could watch a woman die and simply go back to bed. The problem is that it wasn't true. Decades of re-examination revealed that most people who heard something that night had no clear sense that a murder was happening. They caught fragments, heard a
What about the dude who saw it?
voice, and assumed it was a domestic dispute or a drunk. Only
That's
two
valid.
neighbors are confirmed to have understood what was occurring and chosen not to act. One of them was a man named Carl Ross, who was drunk, cracked his door open, saw Genevieve on the ground
He was drunk. Okay, what about the other dude?
and Mosley stabbing her, then shut the door and called a friend to ask what to do. The friend told him to not get involved. He eventually climbed out his window, went to a neighbor's apartment, and only called police after hearing Sofia Farrar shouting for someone to do so. But the myth was already out, and out of that myth came something real. Two social psychologists, John Darley and Bib Latane, were so disturbed by the reported indifference that they began running experiments to understand it. What they found was that the problem was psychology. The more people
No, it was. I learned about this. It was the like the more people present in a situation, the less someone will act because they're like, someone else will do it.
present during an emergency, the less likely any single person was to act. Everyone assumed someone else would handle it.
What did I just say? I'm locked in. I'm not going to school for nothing. Come on.
They called it the diffusion act of responsibility, and it became the foundation of what's now known as the bystander effect. And yes, it was built entirely on a story that was largely fabricated. The other thing the murder helped push into existence was more concrete. In the years after Genevieve's death, public pressure mounted around the chaos of emergency reporting, so in 1967, the President's Commission on Law Enforcement formally recommended a...
I called the police one time, right? And I don't like the police. I don't like interacting. I don't like none of that, bro. I know not all police officers is bad, but I just don't mess with the police, right? And I only called it one time because I saw this kid get hit by a car. That was the only time I called the police. But other than that, nah, bro. But I've never really had like a reason to. You feel me?
nationwide emergency number in 19...
Actually, there might have been some reasons that I just can't think about, but I prefer not to.
68, AT&T and...
But if it, sorry. But if it gets serious enough, like I'm gonna call the police, bro.
around the chaos of emergency reporting, so in 1967, the President's Commission on Law Enforcement formally recommended a nationwide emergency number. In 1968, AT&T and federal government settled on 911, chosen because it was short, easy to remember, and wasn't already in use as an area code. The murder of Polly Klaas, 3 strikes and you're outlaw. On the night of October 1st, 1993, 12-year-old Polly Klaas was having a slumber party at...
Why are y'all killing, like, kids, bro? Like, come on, man. Out of all people, like, you shouldn't be killing people, but at least stop killing kids, bro. What did they, because what I'm thinking is, what could a kid have done to you to make you this mad to be like, oh, nah. Like, it's the same with killing innocent people, but, like, bro, I think kids just have priority, bro. It's like, yo, gang, what could they have done to make you that mad to kill a kid, bro?
Her home in Petaluma, California. She was playing a board game with 2 friends when a stranger walked through her door, tied up the other girls, and took Polly while her friends were left behind.
Wait, huh? They just walked in the house?
The man who took her was named Richard Allen Davis, a career criminal with a long history of violence, kidnapping, and robbery. He had been in and out of prison his entire adult life.
Did he traffic her?
Repeatedly released and, of course, repeatedly reoffending. The night he walked into Polly's house...
Bro, I feel like if you, like, repeatedly offend, maybe you should stay, like, behind bars. Is that not crazy? Like, these aren't petty crimes like stealing or anything. Bro, they said kidnapping. Why? How many, I guess that's what the 3 strikes, I guess that's what it means. 3 strikes. Okay.
Had been out of prison for less than 3 months after serving 8 years of a 16-year sentence for kidnapping. 2 months after the abduction, Davis led police to Polly's body in a rural area of Sonoma County. He had strangled her, likely the same night he took her. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death in 1996. He remains on death row in California. But back to that time, the rage that followed was aimed right at the system, the very same system that had let him out. And in that fury, California moved fast. By 1994, voters had passed the 3 strikes and you're outlaw that says if you had 2 prior convictions for serious or violent offenses and committed any 3rd felony, any felony at all, you got life in prison. The sentence for a 2nd strike alone was automatically doubled. Within months, versions of the law spread to 23 other states. Then Senator Joe Biden helped push a federal version through Congress that same year. But guess what? What followed did not match the pitch. Within the first decade of 3 strikes in California, more than 7,500 people were sentenced to life in prison, nearly half of them for non-serious, non-violent offenses. The Stanford 3 Strikes Project, which represents people sentenced under the law, has clients who receive life sentences for stealing $1 in loose change from a park.
See, I said it earlier, like stealing, nah, that come because some people steal to survive, bro. Actually, I feel like most people steal to survive. Like, bro, unless you stealing like Dior slides and stuff, I feel like most people steal to survive, bro. They're stealing food and bread. I just always think about bread because whenever you see them shows, like that be having like the kids in like a Viking or a fantasy or whatever type world, and they always stealing bread. Like no matter what, every clip you see them in, because I guess bread was the only food back then, and like the rich people was eating like steak and lamb or whatever. But they're always stealing bread or an apple. Bread or an apple. Those are the two that are always stolen.
Car, possessing less than a gram of narcotics, and attempting to break into a soup kitchen. One person got life for stealing baby shoes, another person for stealing pizza. The law added an estimate.
Come on, bro. They just said break soup kitchen and baby shoes? Come on, bro. I think I know why those people were stealing. Oh, I just got me these fresh new baby shoes. Yeah, I think I know why they were stealing baby shoes, bro. We don't have to put them in jail for 25 years because of that, bro. I think we know why they were stealing baby shoes.
Paid $19 billion to California's prison budget, and criminologists found no evidence that it reduced crime or deterred violence. Abduction and murder of Amber Hagerman. Amber Alert. Every time your phone buzzes with an Amber Alert, well, there's a name behind the system, and it happens to have been a little girl from Arlington, Texas, who loved her pink bike, her Pocahontas doll, and being a quote little mommy to her younger brother.
Hey, shout out Pocahontas. Haven't watched it in a minute. I'm not gonna lie though, in my opinion, I feel like Disney did not miss for like 20 years straight. Yeah, definitely 2020. That's when Disney started falling off in movies. But I ain't gonna lie, yeah, that's like, brother, man, that's actually like 70 years of straight bangers, bro. Their run was kind of insane if we think about it.
She was 9 years old, and on a fateful afternoon we're about to see, she never made it home. On January 13th of 1996, Amber Hagerman and her 5-year-old brother Ricky left their grandmother's house for a bike ride, which they did all the time. Their grandmother had told them to stay close, no more than a couple of blocks away. After a few minutes, Ricky turned around and headed back. Amber wanted to keep going a little further. There was a ramp she liked in the parking lot of an abandoned Winn-Dixie grocery store, barely 2/10 of a mile from the house. It was 3:10 in the afternoon.
Like, you see, it's these cases where I just don't think that's bad parenting. I just think that's like really unfortunate. Cause bro, as a kid, I ain't gonna hold you. If there was an abandoned building, unless I was told not to go to that, like specifically not to go to that abandoned building, cause I ain't gonna lie, if I was told not to do something, I usually wouldn't do it. Like depending on like severity. Like if it's a building and I'm told not to go there, I would not go there. So, but if I wasn't told not to go there, I would definitely go. Abandoned building? I can't lie. That sounds cool, bro. That sounds cool. I would go there as a kid, bro. I'd be excited. Oh, it's abandoned. Yeah. I'd be excited, bro.
Broad daylight, a neighbor named Jimmy Kevill, a 78-year-old former sheriff's deputy, was watching from his backyard when he saw a black pickup truck pull into the lot. A dark-haired man, white or Hispanic, somewhere in his 20s or 30s, got out, grabbed Amber off her bicycle, threw her into the truck, and drove off toward the center of Arlington. Kevill called the police immediately. By 3:18 p.m., 8 minutes after the siblings had left the house, Amber was gone. Dozens of officers and federal agents flooded Arlington. They paused only to take quick naps. Tips poured in by the thousands.
Naps, bro. It's midday. What y'all talking about? Huh?
Immediately. By 3:18 p.m., 8 minutes after the siblings had left the house, Amber was
Y'all
gone.
taking naps
Dozens
at
of officers and
3:18?
federal agents flooded Arlington. They paused only to take quick naps.
Bro, nah, bro, fire these officers. Y'all taking naps at 3:18 p.m.? Yo, get these Arlington officers gone, bro.
Tips poured in by the thousands, but none of them led anywhere. 4 days later, a man behind an apartment complex about 6 miles from the parking lot spotted something in a drainage ditch near a creek. It was Amber. She was naked except for a sock on her left foot. Her throat had been slashed. Investigators believed a knife or screwdriver had been used. The medical examiner determined she had been alive for roughly 48 hours after the abduction. Police believe her body had been moved there during a rainstorm, and that whoever left her there knew the area. That creek was secluded enough that you'd have to have a reason to know it existed, and nearly 30 years later, no one has ever been charged. But while the case went cold, something else was quietly starting. A local Texas mother named Diana Simone couldn't get Amber out of her head. She kept thinking about how a little girl had vanished in broad daylight in a neighborhood in the middle of the afternoon, and nobody knew until it was too late. There were all
I'm not surprised about that, to be honest. Like, I know she thinks it's crazy, right? I do think broad daylight abduction is crazy, but I don't think like how nobody really saw it. Cause like, let's be honest, like who's hanging out around an abandoned building at like what 2 p.m. on a normal like work day? You feel me? That's not really that surprising to me personally.
broad daylight in a neighborhood
But
in the
broad daylight is crazy though.
middle of the afternoon, and nobody knew until it was too late. There were already alert systems for weather emergencies and
Now, if this was like a Saturday or Sunday, that'd be wild.
civil defense events, she reasoned. So why not for children? She called a local radio station with the idea, and 14 days after Amber's abduction, wrote a letter requesting that if the system ever came to be, it should carry Amber's name. It was developed by Dallas-Fort Worth broadcasters and local police. The system, officially named Amber, for America's Missing Broadcast Emergency Response, launched on July 5th of 1997.
I didn't know Amber Alert was only for kids. I thought it was just for anyone who got kidnapped. I do be reading them though. I do be reading them every single time. I never just swipe away the Amber Alert. Like I always read the Amber Alert because you never know, bro. You never know. And if you get an alert, that obviously means it's somewhere in your jurisdiction. So it could be a possibility that you see it. But every single time, like I always read it, but it might be bad for me because like I don't know car designs or what's it called? Like like that says a Toyota Corolla. Like I don't know how cars look. To me it's just like, oh, that's a car and it's this color. But I don't know like how it looks unless like it got to be like a BMW. I know the BMW got the BMW sign. I think I know how a Dodge Charger look like. It gotta be very specific. But when they start talking about this is a blue black 64. I don't know what that is, bro. Like I can't identify that, bro.
And the first successful recovery came a year later on November 10th of 98. Today, it operates across all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and 45 other countries. It has saved at least 1,221 children in the United States alone. The Manson family murders. Victims' Rights Bill. On the night of August 8, 1969, Sharon Tate was home. She lived in the Hollywood Hills. She was 26 years old. 1969, Sharon Tate was home. She lived in the Hollywood Hills. She was 26 years old, 8.5 months pregnant, and had a few friends over. Her former boyfriend Jay Sebring, a hairdresser whose client list included Steve McQueen, Frank Sinatra, and Warren Beatty, Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune, and Wojciech Frykowski, a Polish writer and close friend of her husband's. It was a completely ordinary night until 4 people climbed over the fence. Charles Watson, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian had been sent by a man named Charles Manson to kill everyone inside.
Okay, let me go back. I'm sorry, but y'all just said a whole lot of like stuff, bro. Whoa. I've been paying attention this whole time. I feel like the one time I'm not paying attention, y'all say the most info possible. He said about 12 names right there.
On their way to the house, they ran into a teenager named Stephen Parent who had just been visiting an acquaintance at the property's guest house and was heading out to his car. Watson shot him dead at the front gate.
Ooh.
Inside, Frykowski was stabbed more than 50 times and shot twice. Folger managed to break out of the house and made it to the front lawn before being tackled and stabbed 28 times.
Okay, they hired you to murder them, not brutalize them. Come on, bro. 20. What hired assassin is gonna do that, bro? 28 times? Yeah, okay. He just hired some serial killers, bro. He went on the FBI's most wanted. I don't even, no, they didn't have that in 1969. I don't know what he did. He went to Gotham's insane asylum and just chose 4 people and he hired them because there's no way.
Debring was shot, kicked in the face, and stabbed repeatedly, and
Okay, kicking in the face, yeah, like, yeah, these dudes are just crazy.
Sharon Tate, who was 2 weeks away from giving birth, begged her killers to at least let her live long enough to have her baby. One of them stabbed her 16 times anyway. With a towel soaked in her blood, they wrote "pig" on the front door. The following night, Manson led a handful of followers, including Leslie Van Houten, to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca, a wealthy
They were just, so they was just going to the rich houses and just sliming them out. And they was just walking straight through there too.
couple who had absolutely no connection to Tate or anyone at the house. Manson tied them up, then he left, and his followers handled the rest. They stabbed Leno with a chrome-plated bayonet, among other weapons.
Okay, here's what I'm saying though. Like, if you rich, I feel like, I know you think like you untouchable and like you on top of the world, but I think if you rich, you should have like the most protection, right? And I'm not saying you should have priority over normal people, but that's exactly what I'm saying. Okay, maybe not when it comes to like the law, like when like hospitals and stuff, but in general, like you have more money, right? And you have like, obviously you're famous, so you have more eyes on you, so more people with hostile intent are gonna want to get to you. So you would need more protection than like the average person. If I'm rich and famous, if I'm Justin Bieber, you best believe I'm gonna have an iron door. That might be a fire hazard, but I'm gonna have an iron door, bro. Actually, make it platinum. Make it platinum, bro. I don't even care if it's double doors. They're gonna be iron. Like, no one is. If I'm that rich and all that, brother, I'm having the best security system. It's gonna do a body scan before I walk in the house. I'm gonna have 8 pit bulls in the front. Like, bro, you not. Hey, you gonna have to go through a lot, and if you kill me at that point or rot or whatever, you deserve it, bro. Cause I'm gonna have you go through the ropes.
And wrote "Helter Skelter" in his blood on the refrigerator. After that, Hollywood panicked, and for months, nobody had any idea who did it, until Susan Atkins, sitting in a jail cell on unrelated charges, couldn't help herself and started bragging to her cellmate. Manson and his followers were convicted and sentenced to death in 1971. The following year, California Supreme Court ruled the death penalty unconstitutional, and every single sentence was converted to life in prison. Now, this is the part of the story that actually changed something. Sharon Tate's mother, Doris, spent more than a decade after the murders barely functioning, still processing what had happened to her daughter and unborn grandson. Then she found out that Leslie Van Houten had gathered 900 signatures pushing for her parole. That was apparently the thing that broke through. Working with the National Enquirer, which printed coupons for readers to sign and mail in, Doris gathered 350,000 signatures against Van Houten's release.
350,000? And this was before the internet. This was in 1969. She got those out the mud, bro. Dang, 350,000.
So she would stay in prison. She then started fighting for something that, unbelievably, didn't exist yet in California: the right of victims' families to speak in court at all. Before 1982, a family could sit through an entire trial or parole hearing and have no formal mechanism to say a single word about what had been taken from them. Doris helped change that. The victims—
Oh yeah, what's it called? I forgot what it's called, but yeah, because now like the families be speaking on. Okay, yeah.
rights bill passed in California in 1982, allowing family members to testify about their losses at trials and parole hearings.
Is it just family members? Isn't it like anyone who's connected?
2 years later, at Watson's 1984 parole hearing, she became the first person to deliver what we now call a victim impact statement. She sat across from the man
yeah.
who had led the killers into her daughter's home and said, "What mercy, sir, did you show my daughter when she was begging for her life? When will I come up for parole?" All 50 states now have some version of that law. The Tylenol murders, federal anti-tampering bill.
Why are these all like? Is this? Wait, never mind.
You know when you're trying to open a bottle of Tylenol and you're fighting through the plastic wrap, then the foil seal, then—
Nah, because usually when I use it's already open. Like, I don't really, but also I don't really take medicine. I don't like taking medicine. I'm low key against it. But personally, but like if I'm sick, like really sick or dying, I'm gonna take it. But I ain't gonna hold you. I try my hardest not to take it, bro. Like, I gotta be pretty sick to take medicine, bro. I try to avoid all that stuff. Even let's say I get a normal headache, I don't take nothing. I just thug it through. I don't like taking medicine, bro.
the cotton wad stuffed inside, and you're just trying to get rid of a headache, and now you have an even worse one. All of that exists because of something that happened in Chicago in the fall of 1982, and the person who caused it was never found.
This is just crazy to me because the 80s was not that long ago, bro. They just didn't have, like, bro, the 80s was, I would not want to live in the 80s comparative to now. Maybe aside from like rent. Aside from like rent, oh my gosh. Aside from rent and owning home ownership and gas prices, those are the only pluses that the 80s had, bro. Other than that, also the 80s did have Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan. They did have the two Michaels who should not be in the same timeline. That is an error in the timeline, bro, because that's too much greatness. That's too much greatness at once. And that, call it Glaze, bro. It's Michael Jackson and Michael Jordan. Call it Glaze, bro.
It started on the morning of September 29th. Mary Kellerman was 12 years old, living in Elk Grove Village, a suburb of Chicago. She woke up with a sore throat and a runny nose. Her parents gave her one extra strength Tylenol capsule, the kind everyone had in their medicine.
But they still have, I thought they were for kids though. Or I thought they had like on the label, it says like 2 for adults, 1 for kids. Or sometimes it's like 1 for adults, half for kids.
Cabinet and sent her back to bed. She was dead by 7 a.m. That same morning, a 27-year-old postal worker named Adam Janus in Arlington Heights collapsed and died of what doctors initially assumed was a massive heart attack. His brother Stanley and sister-in-law Teresa rushed to his house to be with the family, and then both of them got headaches, an understandable thing given the circumstances, so each took a capsule or two from the same bottle of Tylenol sitting on Adam's counter. Stanley died that day.
Oh.
Teresa died 2 days later. 3 more people died in the days that followed. Mary McFarland, Paula Prince, Mary Weiner, all of them had taken Tylenol shortly before they died. When investigators finally made the connection in early October, what they found inside those capsules was a lethal dose of potassium cyanide, carefully packed into each one. But this poison hadn't been added at the factory. Someone had walked into grocery stores and pharmacies around the Chicago area.
Oh, that's crazy. And this is like the tampered packaging thing. Like the same thing with Snapple. That's like if the cap is already, if the bubble's already up, don't drink it. The same thing with pickles too. If like the bubble's already up, don't get it.
Taking bottles of Tylenol off the shelves prior to open the gelatin capsules, which at the time were specifically popular.
But why? For what? You don't, bro, at this point you don't even know people are dying. You're just assuming. Like at least like with other killers, like they see it on the news or they want to know like the person that they killed is killed. You're just doing this randomly for what?
Because they were easy to swallow, which also made them easy to open, then laced them with cyanide and put them back on the shelves. In October, a tax consultant named James Lewis sent a letter to Johnson & Johnson, Tylenol's parent company, saying he would, quote, stop the killing if they wired him $1 million.
Oh, okay. He wanted money. Oh, okay. A little stupid, but you figured out how to, you became a chemist and figured out how to drug people, and then you try to blackmail the company asking for $1 million. Some people use their smarts for just like, I'm telling you, bro, and I stand by this theory. I think the smartest people have the lowest common sense, bro, because they put all their skill points in one area, in one expertise, and they just like they haven't had time to develop their other common sense qualities, bro. It's still possible to do so, but like, holy man. Instead of just becoming a chemist, you decide to, I need $1 million right now. Like they wouldn't find, like they're not a multi-million dollar corporation. Like they're gonna, oh yeah, we got you, bro. Yeah, for sure. Here you go, bro. Spend it wisely. Like, oh my god, bro.
Police eventually tracked him down in New York, but he had no demonstrable connection to the actual poisonings. Anyway, he was convicted of extortion and sentenced to 20 years. The real killer was never identified. To this day,
for extortion. 20 years for extortion? Not the other crime. Not that he killed like 6 people. Extortion. Right. He extorted a company. Right, for sure. Yeah, that's the main issue right here. He extorted $1 million company. Not that he killed 6 people. He extorted $1 million company. Dang.
Nobody has been. What happened next though is the business move. Johnson & Johnson pulled 31 million bottles of Tylenol off shelves nationwide before anyone told them they had to. And 6 weeks after the crisis began, they came back with a completely redesigned bottle, foil seal, cotton wad, childproof cap, plastic strip around the lid. All of that made it immediately obvious to anyone if a package had been opened. The gelatin capsules, the ones that had been so easy to pry apart and refill, were phased out in favor of caplets, tablets coated in the same easy to swallow gel, but impossible to tamper with the same way. Meanwhile, the Congress passed what became known as the Tylenol Bill, making it a federal crime to tamper with consumer products. In 1989, the FDA followed with federal guidelines requiring all over-the-counter medications to come in tamper-evident packaging. Every annoying seal you've ever fought with on a bottle of aspirin or cold medicine is a direct consequence of 7 deaths in the Chicago suburbs that were never solved.
That's so lame, bro. Cause like they did this, but bro, it'd be hard to open it. It'd be hard to open in those. Cause you don't even be getting it open, right? And then you gotta poke a hole in it, and then like you gotta like spread it open from those, and then you gotta peel it off. Like, bro, because y'all just want to poison people and try to extort $1 million company. Now I'm in pain trying to open a pain reliever, causing me more pain. What is wrong with y'all, man? Just adding stuff for no reason, bro. Imagine there weren't any weirdos and we just open this like normal. Just, oh man, let me just, oh wow, it goes down so easy. Now I need a pair of scissors, bro, to open this.
Who took Johnny? The Johnny Gosch Bill. On the morning of September 5th, 1982, a 12-year-old paperboy left his house in West Des Moines.
12-year-old paperboy, he was getting bread. He was getting bread. 12-year-old paperboy, he was really about that. He was really about that. Dare I say paper? My bad. But nah, he was really about that for real though. 12. Hey, what? Let me guess. This is the 80s. Cause he's 12. I don't even think they allow you to work at 12. You can't even get your first job till you 15, unless you work, or 16, unless you're working under the counter. You can't get your first job till you 16.
That were never solved. Who took Johnny? The Johnny Gosch Bill. On the morning of September 5th, 1982, a 12-year-old paperboy left his house in West Des Moines, Iowa, and simply never came back. His wagon was found 5 blocks from home with not a single paper delivered. After that, he became a symbol, a turning point, and for his mother, an understandable 40-year obsession that still isn't over. Before any of that though, let's go back to that morning. Johnny had been doing his paper route for almost a year, and before any of that, let's just say he was the kind of kid who'd use his route money to buy a single rose at the mall flower shop and hand it to his mom with it hidden behind his back. So
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, bro. Yeah, that's even more heartbreaking, bro. He worked to give his mom roses? That is heartbreaking. That's heartbreaking.
Johnny had been doing his paper route for almost a year, and before any of that, let's just say he was the kind of kid who'd use his route money to buy a single rose at the mall flower shop and hand it to his mom with it hidden behind his back. So when subscribers started calling asking why their papers hadn't shown up, his parents knew immediately something was wrong. His dad went out and delivered the route himself. His mom called the police and waited almost an hour for them to arrive. Meanwhile, witnesses already pieced together a rough picture of what had happened. A blue two-tone car had been circling the area, the driver stopping to ask at least 3 different people for directions to 86th Street. A very tall man was seen walking behind Johnny on 42nd Street. Then a witness looked out his bedroom window just in time to see what looked like a Ford Fairmont run a stop sign and head north towards the interstate. The police's response? They asked Noreen if Johnny had ever run away before. This wasn't entirely surprising given the circumstances. Iowa law at the time actually allowed police to wait 72 hours before officially declaring a child missing, and the default assumption was almost always runaway. Making things worse, the police chief at the time, Orville, had already been accused that same year by 14 of his own patrol officers of beating a handcuffed prisoner, drinking on the job, and covering up a burglary investigation involving his own son.
And he's still employed, bro. Bro, what's up with the system, dog?
City investigated, cleared him completely, and fired 2 of the officers who had spoken out. When Noreen later tried to identify a police officer she'd seen talking to Johnny under the bleachers at a football game 2 nights before his disappearance, she says Orville started yelling, stomped his feet, and told her she shouldn't question the man. That was the moment she stopped trusting the system entirely and started her own investigation, one that's still going. She wasn't wrong to push, because while the police were going nowhere, someone else came forward with information that would change everything, and then raise even more questions. In 1991, 9 years after Johnny disappeared, Noreen got a call from a private investigator in Nebraska. He represented a prison inmate named Paul Bonacci. He was serving time for child and claimed he had personally taken part in Johnny's kidnapping. The investigator had hours of recorded interviews where Bonacci described a coordinated, multi-vehicle kidnapping carried out by roughly half a dozen people. He said he was 15 at the time and had been coerced into participating at gunpoint, told he'd have his brains blown out on the dirt road if he refused. His role was to approach Johnny on foot, since children are less frightened by other kids than by strange adults. A man named Tony physically pushed Johnny into the car. Bonacci said he held a chloroform-soaked rag over Johnny's face. Then they drove out of town, switching vehicles multiple times, one car east towards Chicago, a station wagon south, and Johnny eventually loaded into a van heading west towards Omaha, then north to a house near Sioux City. Besides that detailed account, Bonacci also knew that Johnny had a dirt bike, he knew Johnny went to Noreen's yoga classes, he knew which Mexican restaurant they went to afterward, he knew about the birthmark on Johnny's chest that looked like South America, about the scar on Johnny's tongue from when he bit in it falling out of a treehouse, about a burn mark near Johnny's ankle from when his leg touched the tailpipe of his brother's motorcycle.
Yo, Johnny was a little adventurer. Dang.
None of that had been made public. The West Des Moines Police Department never interviewed him. As for what happened because of all of this, in 1984, Iowa passed the Johnny Gosch bill, requiring law enforcement to immediately investigate any missing child case where foul play was suspected. That same year, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children.
What does foul play mean? Like, is that inside or like, I don't, that's inside. That gotta be inside because they said the officer was tweaking. So foul play gotta mean like if like the officers or something.
Was established, and Johnny's face went on milk cartons across the country. In 1982, 66% of missing children were eventually returned. That number is now 98 to 99%. Alright guys, if you like the way I explained those stories,
Okay. That was interesting. I mess with it.